Something happened to you in this very moment. You feel the weight of a judgment that was silently passed against your life, a verdict they tried to impose on you without you even having the right to defend yourself. What I'm about to say isn't for everyone. It's for you who has carried the burden of being misunderstood while simply trying to do what was right. There's a reason this message reached you right now, and the answer you're searching for is buried exactly in what they tried to hide from your eyes. By the end of this conversation, you will recognize the three truths that were concealed about the doors that closed in your face. You will understand why that silent judgment has lost its power right now. And I will reveal the one stance you must take so your inner justice finally meets the outer world, a move that will shift everything you've been facing. You've been noticing clear signs, the feeling that certain conversations, once normal, now sound like hollow echoes, as if the people around you are speaking a language you no longer recognize. The injustice of being the only one who sees what's happening while everyone else seems asleep in blind comfort. The unbearable weight of carrying truths that, if spoken, would be used against you. You feel as if you're living in a waiting room where the judge made the decision before even hearing your case. The fatigue you feel doesn't come from overwork, but from the effort of sustaining a narrative that isn't yours. You've been put in the defendant's seat by people who have no authority over your journey, but know that what you feel as exclusion is actually protection. You are being removed from circles where your growth would be seen as a threat. Take a deep breath with me now. Let it settle in the part of you that has waited most to hear this. If at least one of these signs touched you, if your shoulders dropped when you realized you're not crazy for feeling this isolation, type the number 333 in the comments. Your fingers typing those numbers are your spirit saying yes to your own freedom. The number 333 is the seal of the threshold, the mark that separates the time of injustice from the time of your revelation. It's the code that breaks the imposed judgment and returns your sovereignty to you. Type 333. Attention!
There is a truth sealed by God for millennia, hidden until the end of times. It's no coincidence you are here. The signs are everywhere, and few are ready for this revelation. If you've ever felt that restlessness, that there's something deeper in the scriptures, this book is your key. But know this is the time. And the vault of the chosen reveals what God sealed for you. Within it, the 7 seals unveil the truth about being a chosen one and the eternal impact of this revelation. And the proof is here. Look how many minds are freed. Yours could be next. Secure your access now. Click the link in the comments or description and unveil these truths.
And come back here to me. Beneath that layer of signs, there's a structure you need to unmask. What has been operating in your life isn't bad luck, nor a sequence of your mistakes. It's a mechanism of self-sabotage inherited from external expectations. You learned to ask for permission to bloom in soil that was always yours by right. You got used to performing for an audience that never intended to applaud, only to watch your fall. Imagine for a moment the courtyard of your own soul. It's a vast place, a ground you cultivated with the sweat of your brow and the clarity of your intention. But while you were away tending to the needs of those who didn't deserve it, intruders occupied the corners of that courtyard. They brought their furniture, their rules, their judgment into your home. You even came to believe that courtyard, cluttered with others' belongings, was all you deserved. But now, the light is shifting. The revelation that their judgment holds no validity is clearing the space. If something inside you just sealed, if the image of that courtyard being reclaimed fell into a place you can't explain, type the words I see in the comments. Let the recognition seal where it just landed. The act of typing those words makes the witness permanent in your own record. Type and come back here to me. This reframing is what changes your stance. You stop being the defendant and become the owner of the land. What was once persecution, you now understand as a filter. Those who judged you aren't enemies, they're just people who couldn't bear the presence of your truth. There's no need for confrontation, for the Supreme Judge has already invalidated the sentence. Your only duty now is the maintenance of your silence, the preservation of your peace. If something in this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, let your like be your wordless amen, not as a metric, but as an agreement that what was named here was named correctly. You're beginning to understand that the path you walk doesn't need justification to anyone, for the validation you seek would never come from those who lack the capacity to see your light. There's someone in your life who needs exactly this message right now. Someone who has been striving harder than everyone around them and still sees the door closed. Someone who walks in silence in a way no one around can explain. Someone whose face just appeared in your mind as I spoke. Send this to that person, not as a recommendation, but as a delivery, as a notice that the judgment is over. Before this ends, type the words, "I am the chosen one," in the comments. Not as a wish, not as a hope, but as a confirmation. The agreement forming in silence between heaven and your hearing is an agreement you will live by for the rest of this season. Type slowly and let your fingers do what your spirit is already doing. You have been operating under a mechanism that doesn't belong to you, an invisible gear of self-sabotage installed in you before you could question its validity. For a long time, you believed the weight you carry was the necessary cost of your integrity, but the pattern is simpler and at the same time more devastating. You were taught to seek approval in courts that already had the verdict written against you. You presented yourself before external expectations as if they were the laws of your own destiny, sacrificing your vital energy to satisfy audiences that were never actually looking your way. This pattern of trying to explain yourself, of trying to prove your worth through superhuman effort, is just a defense strategy that became your prison. You aren't failing at executing your desires. You're actually trying to build a house on ground that wasn't given to you just because someone, at some point in your past, said that was the only place you'd be accepted. Imagine now the courtyard of your soul. It's a vast, silent space where your truth should be planted and protected. For years, though, you allowed people, memories of old demands, and voices of figures who no longer walk beside you to occupy that courtyard. They entered without permission, brought their own furniture, their own rules, and worse, their own judgment of who you should be. You felt that courtyard was yours, but in practice you became a visitor in your own home, tending to others' crops while your private soil dried up. You guarded that space with such zeal, trying to maintain order amidst others' chaos, that you forgot the owner of the house would never have allowed such an invasion if they had recognized their own authority. That courtyard was designed for your peace, not to house the tribunal of others. Take a deep breath with me now. Let this image settle in the part of you that has waited most to hear this revelation. If something inside you just sealed, if the image of that invaded courtyard fell into a place you can finally name, type the words "I see" in the comments. Let the recognition seal where the truth just landed. Type and come back here to me, for we need to complete this transition. The judgment that was made against you, that silent verdict that kept you from thriving and kept you always on the defensive, has lost its jurisdiction in this instant. You are no longer the defendant who needs to present evidence to be accepted. You are no longer the one who asks permission to exist. By naming the pattern and looking at the courtyard that was occupied, you have initiated the eviction process of all those expectations that don't belong to you. The transition from the position of defendant to the position of owner of your own territory is an internal move, an unlearning of guilt that was never yours. The door that once seemed sealed isn't a barrier against you, but the necessary protection so you can finally reorganize what is yours. You are no longer fighting against the shadows of those who passed through your courtyard. You are simply removing the objects they left behind, returning to your soil the fertility that was always yours by right, waiting only for the moment you would return to take control. Take a deep breath with me now, feeling the air renew every corner of your being as the weight of that judgment dissolves completely. If something in this revelation confirmed what your spirit already knew deep down, let your like be your wordless amen. Not as any metric, but as a deep agreement that what was named here was named correctly, recognizing that the justice you sought outside was, in fact, already being processed within you. Stay with that certainty for a moment, letting it settle in the part of you that has waited most for this moment of clarity and peace. Someone you know well, whose face just appeared in your mind as I spoke, and whom you recognize as that person who has been striving much harder than everyone around them, while seeing the door remain closed and opportunities drift away. That person who walks in silence, carrying an unjust judgment on their shoulders, with no one able to explain the depth of the fatigue they feel. Send this to that person, not as a recommendation nor as advice, but as a delivery, a notice that they no longer need to carry that verdict alone, because the jurisdiction of fear over their life is also coming to an end. Not as a wish, nor as a distant hope. Type as a final confirmation, as the seal of one who has crossed the desert and now understands their worth. Type slowly, feeling each word, and let your fingers do exactly what your spirit is already doing in this moment of liberation. Perhaps you still don't have words for it, but what you felt wasn't coincidence. It was a notification that the judgment pronounced against your journey, in secret, has been annulled. You carry a question that no one around you has been able to answer, and now you will hear the definitive answer. What I have to deliver to you today isn't a suggestion. It's the revelation of a movement being orchestrated above the circumstances you see with your physical eyes. By the end of this conversation, you will recognize the signs that have been emerging as warnings that the cycle of injustice has ended. You will understand the pattern of self-sabotage they tried to install in you through false expectations, and I will show you why certain doors remained locked to protect you from a territory that wasn't yours. There's a truth about your identity being restored right now, and that's why you were drawn to this exact point. You've been noticing things that don't make sense to anyone else. You've been waking up at the same hour in the early morning, as if a call was being made just before sunrise. You felt a strange emotional distance from people who were once close, not due to a fight, but due to an alignment that simply no longer allows coexistence at the same vibration level. You felt a fatigue that isn't physical. It's a weight of carrying truths that people around you can't or won't see, and there's a reason for that. What you call isolation, I call preparation. What you understand as rejection is, in fact, the hand of destiny removing you from a place where your light was being drained to feed a structure that never belonged to you. It's the smallest agreement, but it's the most real. The pattern that operated over you all this time was the attempt to convince you that you needed to ask permission to be who you are. They operated on you with the idea that your worth was tied to an audience that was never paying attention. You pulled cords that were no longer attached to anything, trying to keep alive a reality that had already expired. It's as if you were placed in a courtyard, a space you tended with all care, believing you were the owner of the land, while others occupied the windows and dictated the rules of how you should move inside your own house. You treated that courtyard as if it were the only possible world. You swept the dry leaves of others' expectations, cleaned the footprints of those who entered uninvited, and tried in every way to maintain order in a place designed to be your prison, not your home. But today's revelation is about unlearning. It's about realizing you don't need to renovate that courtyard. You need to recognize that the fences were never meant to protect you, but to limit your reach. Type and come back here to me. This is the moment to drop the keys you carried for doors that were never yours. The judgment they made against you, that labeled you as insufficient or tried to define your destiny based on mistakes you've already overcome, has lost its validity. You are no longer in the defendant's seat. The jurisdiction of fear has been removed. Take a deep breath with me. You don't need to carry others' verdicts as if they were your final sentence. The invitation now is to walk out of that courtyard, beyond the fences, toward the horizon you always knew existed, but were never allowed to look at. You are being led back to your true lineage, where your voice regains weight, and your presence regains the authority that should never have been questioned. What comes next is the return to the autonomy of your own soul. It's someone who walks in silence in a way no one around can explain, carrying a fatigue that isn't physical, but existential. A face appeared in your mind as I spoke, didn't it? That person who seeks in secret, who holds a posture of strength while the world crumbles inside. Send this to that person, not as a content recommendation, but as a delivery of relief. Just as this revelation reached you, as pure notice, take it to those still trying to understand the reason for so much weight. Stay with that thought for a moment. Let the clarity about that person settle at the bottom of your consciousness. Before anything, now that you understand the weight of the judgment that was removed, we need to seal this new identity in your record. Type slowly. Let your fingers do what your spirit is already doing in this very moment. Something happened to you in this moment, a revelation about the judgment that was made against you in silence. Many times, your life seemed to walk on thin ice, where every step was watched by voices that weren't always present, but whose sentences you felt weighing on your shoulders like a leaden cloak. There's a reason the door that should have been wide open remained closed, and I came today, on this date, to show you what has been unmasked. By the end of this message, you will recognize the exact origin of that unjust judgment. You will understand the mechanics of the self-sabotage they tried to install in your system, and more importantly, you will receive the key to retake control of the territory that is yours by right. Stay with me now, for what I'm about to reveal is the layer that supports all the others you've tried to understand. You've been feeling sudden waves of emotion that find no explanation in your daily life, haven't you? Conversations that once flowed now seem to carry an emptiness, as if the people around you are speaking from a script you can no longer memorize. You wake up often with the feeling that something has been moved on your board, but when you look around, everything seems the same. These aren't signs of confusion. They are signs that your vision is adjusting to see the invisible. The 333 is the threshold between what was imposed on you and what you will manifest. The pattern that has operated in your life isn't your failure. It's an inheritance. You were conditioned to pull cords that are no longer attached to anything. For a long time, you performed for an audience that was never paying attention, spending energy that should have been used to build your own courtyard. Imagine the courtyard of your soul as a vast ground, with high walls and a main entrance. You, in a moment of exhaustion or doubt, left the gate ajar and allowed others to come in and decide where each flower should be planted. They dictated the layout of your space. They decided which areas should stay in the shade and which should shine. But now, the owner of the house has returned. You realize the courtyard is yours, and that the plants they left there bear no fruit that feeds your real hunger. If this image of the courtyard, your territory that was invaded, and now needs to be reorganized by you, touched your inner truth, type the words I see in the comments. Let that recognition seal where the clarity just landed. Type, and come back here to me. This reframing is what separates those who live under the weight of another's sentence from those who walk with their own authority. You are leaving the position of defendant, where you had to justify your existence, to the position of one who reclaims ownership of their own time and energy. There is nothing to prove to those who don't have the key to your courtyard. Take a deep breath with me. Someone whose face just appeared in your mind as I spoke. Send this to that person. Not as a recommendation, but as a delivery, a notice that the time of being a defendant is over. The weight you carry on your shoulders, that constant feeling of being judged for choices only you understand, is the last remnant of that old structure. The silent tribunal they set up against you, where every step was measured and every silence was interpreted as guilt, has just lost its jurisdiction. It's not just a perception, it's a change in the order of things. You no longer need to defend yourself against accusations made in rooms you never entered. The recognition of your territory, the courtyard you now inhabit as a legitimate owner, demands a new stance, a stance of one who knows the sentence of freedom was signed long ago, even when you still felt like a prisoner. Type slowly. Let your fingers do what your spirit is already doing as the truth settles in. You are committed to your own truth. You are sent to occupy the space reserved for you. You are being led out of the shadow of others' judgment. Right now, all over the world, other people are receiving this same recognition and feeling the same relief. You are part of something that doesn't announce itself with noise, something silent, deep, and unshakable. And that's exactly why it's real. Attention!
There is a truth sealed by God for millennia, hidden until the end of times. It's no coincidence you are here. The signs are everywhere, and few are ready for this revelation. If you've ever felt that restlessness, that there's something deeper in the scriptures, this book is your key. But know this is the time. And the vault of the chosen reveals what God sealed for you. Within it, the 7 seals unveil the truth about being a chosen one and the eternal impact of this revelation. And the proof is here. Look how many minds are freed. Yours could be next. Secure your access now. Click the link in the comments or description and unveil these truths.